What's going on, everybody? LK here, back at it again with another video, and today some more Dragon Ball for you, but this actually applies to basically every fighting game. I basically give this advice to all beginners, and mostly even up and through to like intermediate level play, you can still kind of apply this advice. This is pretty much the most straightforward way to get good slash okay, whatever you want to call it, out of fighting game very quickly. If you like the content I put out, please like this video or subscribe to the channel. It actually does help the channel out a lot, and I would really appreciate it. Thanks a lot. Okay, so with that, let's hop right into it. So let's say you're just starting the game, or you're deep into the game. I'm on Dragon Ball now, but it could be Guilty Gear, it could be Grand Blue, it could be Street Fighter, it could be whatever. When you're starting, there's a lot to learn, that's true, but there's also the potential to be overwhelmed, because when you're playing matches, you're trying to remember your things, you have to know what the character is doing, you might not know all their stuff, you don't even know what to look for. There's a lot to take in, and then especially, maybe not today, you can't go offline and ask somebody directly, but maybe you type a quick message like, hey, do you have any tips? And the truth is, I don't really have tips, right? But it's not because I can't tell you stuff, because there's a lot of stuff I can tell you, but it's just, especially when you're starting or you're at a lower level, there's just honestly a lot of flaws in your game plan, so you have to patch these up. Some of these are easier to patch up than others, which leads me to what I want to talk about today. So quite simply, the easiest way to get half decent at a fighting game is to work on all of your one player things. So what do I mean? So in my head, I basically group all the things you could practice in a game with one player stuff and two player stuff. So two player things would be things that you need another person to interact with to get better at these things. These are things like defense and neutrals, stuff like that. All the guessing games that are involved in the game, right? All the one-player things are things that you could just practice by yourself and be good at. And you will notice that people really care about these things. They really talk about these things a lot on things like Twitter or Reddit. And when people watch streams, they call out people way more for these one-player things than these two-player things, because these one-player things are easier to do, easier to learn, and easier to get good at. But doing these things are is just way easier to get better at these things than the two-player things. And these are combos, pressure, and mix-ups. Those are the three easiest things you can get better at. These matter because, one, the most important thing is you don't need another person to practice these things in general. So for example, a combo, most people are like, what do they do when they learn a new character? They start with BNBs, right? So you learn your BNB, your BNB ends in a knockdown, so now you need a setup. If they block your setup, if you have some type of mix-up of your setup, then you need pressure, right? These are usually the first things you learn, but you could always get better at these things. For the most part, when you're starting, you just learn a really, really baseline level of these things, and you don't like go too in-depth. But if you work on these things, they will help you out a lot. So combos should be the most obvious. So for a character like Base Vegeta, for example, so here's his BNB. Okay, so that's like a respectable damage, right? There's a little damage, about a bar build, as opposed to doing a more advanced combo. So the damage was significantly more and the meter was significantly more, right? So learning better combos just means your hits just mean more. So it doesn't matter what skill level it is. Like if you hit a top player with some big combo, it does all that damage. You're going to take that character. You're going to get that much closer to taking the round. Mix-ups are really similar too. So for example, for this, it doesn't matter how good you are, right? It doesn't matter how good you are going to take a 50-50. If you practice this mix-up, you will get a 50% chance of hitting your opponent. You just have a much better chance. If you don't practice your mix-up, then you're not going to hit them, and you're going to waste that hit. And you generally don't have to practice against the opponent's defensive options for the most part for mix-ups either. Now, if we're talking specifically about Dragon Ball, whether or not something is a mix-up would come into the discussion, of course. This game is full of things that are like near reactable on purpose, or if you don't use them with certain applications, then it's much easier to defend against. So, for example, like 6M, right? So, especially if you watch me play ranked, you will see me constantly get kind of annoyed if someone is really trying to hit me with 6M. Why? Because 6M is not fast, it's like 24 frames, it's pretty reactable if you are just doing it. But there are contexts that you could create that actually turn this into either really good offense or target specific things. The only thing is it's not very obvious, so I wouldn't necessarily focus on that specific thing. I would focus on trying to either, if not find, then take 50-50s from other people. Now, of course, if you're especially like an actual beginner, it would be very hard to figure out what is a mix-up and what is not a mix-up. So the first thing I would recommend would be to watch high-level players of your character, right? We've had 2 years of World Tour, so by now you know who's good at this game, right? You could watch whoever's playing your character. There's definitely some tournament video of them, and then see what they do and just copy it. And it's not that hard. The execution in this game specifically is not that hard. If you're playing like a Guilty Gear or something, then it might be harder to do some of the stuff you see in videos, but it's still a way you can learn how to build your mix-ups. And then pressure. So pressure would be the last thing. Just like mix-ups, it's something that you could practice on your own. It doesn't really take that much interaction. Now, generally with pressure, usually the opponent has more direct responses. One, because of how the game is built, and two, because, you know, in general, you can't jump cancel things, you can't go airborne stuff, so it's hard for you to kind of totally freestyle your pressure. But you can build either sequences that give you mix-ups that are safe against certain things, or you can build a situation where it's really hard for the opponent to escape even if it's offense. Kid Buu is a really good example of this. It would be 2S, right? So you have the 2S air dash in, you have the 2S retreat, you have the 2S ball. Like, he has a bunch of ways he can vary his offense there. Once you see somebody do this, and if you play the character, you can just be like, oh, I'll add this to my game. Okay, so hopefully that makes sense. It's pretty straightforward, but it does actually mean a lot. It means that all your hits matter more, and the opponent will be more scared of hitting you, because that's another thing. A lot of people, obviously not everyone who plays these games are competitive players, so especially when you're, you know, even playing through ranked, say trying to hit Living Legend or something in this game, or whatever the equivalent is in other fighting games, there will be people who they will literally disrespect you because they're not afraid of getting hit by you, because you don't have mix-ups and you don't have pressure and you don't do a lot of damage when you hit them. So one of the first steps of actually getting your opponents to respect you and like think that they have to pick more clever ways of escaping your pressure and stuff like that is to actually be better at these things. And these things, again, you practice them generally by yourself without needing help from a friend or whatever, and you can just take them into a match. So doing these will give you a big jump in your skill level without actually having to get too much in the nitty-gritty of like fighting game interactions and a bunch of stuff about neutral and defense. Neutral and defense take a long time to learn, and there's a lot of little things you have to learn, and they don't apply to all games, but these things apply to all games, all characters. Like when you learn a new character and you're learning a new game, you should just be doing this. As usual, if you have any questions, leave them in the comments. Like and subscribe if you feel like it, and I'll see you next time. Peace out.